Hi there, I'm Leanne Vanderputten, mother of 11, grandmother of 43 and counting, from Finer Femininity, where I share with you tidbits of old-fashioned goodness and wholesomeness to help us on the path to being joyful, traditional, feminine Catholic women. Today our article is from a wonderful book called Achieving Peace of the Heart. It is by Father Narciso Irala, who was a Jesuit back in the day, a Jesuit and a psychologist. And this article is called Fear. Could we succeed in banishing exaggerated insecurity and fear from the earth, we would double the health and happiness of the human race. As children, says Fosdick, we feared only two things, falling down and loud noises. After passing through the fears of childhood, experience teaches us that many fears are groundless, and we protect ourselves against unreasonable fears. Yet, oftentimes the environment and our imagination lead us to see dangers where there are really none, or they may magnify our fears 100-fold. Strong impressions of terror or lively bouts of anxiety and fear, whether they come from conversation or from a vivid imagination, or the movies, leave something like a residue or sedimentation in the subconscious. This residue is a tendency toward insecurity or a feeling of anxiety. And when this feeling invades an idle mind, it tends to fill it with anxiety images, provoking organic alterations such as physical inhibitions, trembling, contraction of the blood vessels, pallor, panting for breath, palpitations, and so forth. Fear is a monster which dwells in the caverns of the subconscious. The more vague and confused it is, the more it afflicts us. We should drag it out from its hidden lair, look at it face to face, and then we shall destroy it. Degrees of fear. We said in the first part that the idea or apprehension of danger, whether real or imaginary, is the cause of fear. Fear and its consequent inhibitions keep on increasing in proportion to the magnitude of the danger, its proximity, and the difficulty of avoiding it. So at the mere possibility of a misfortune, or because of an imagined inability to cope with it, our physical movements and our very speech lose their spontaneity. When we merely walk out in front of a large audience, all of whom have their eyes on us, very few of us will even walk naturally. If our lack of confidence turns into alarm at a really probable or great danger, the unity of our wishing, thinking, and acting is broken, and even our muscles tremble. We are literally shaken up. And if the serious danger or misfortune seems to be inevitable, then anxiety tends to destroy all control of movements, ideas, and emotions. Even the memory can be inhibited, as when timid students take examinations. Finally, if the fear goes a step further and the danger seems to be imminent, serious, and inevitable, panic can take hold of us and bring anarchy into our thoughts, feelings, and actions. Paralysis of all our powers may follow if the fear is extremely great. An example of this is the confusion and witless panic that often come with an earthquake or a fire in a theater. How to control fear. Fear is the emotion most difficult to control because often we do not know what we fear or why we are afraid, as in cases of anxiety, phobias, or groundless fears. The motive is often unconscious or may be transferred from its real cause to some accompanying circumstance. Or we may be unconsciously repressing some natural reaction which might humiliate us, we think, if seen. Instead, we give it expression in symbolic fears, which we recognize as groundless, but which we do not know how to control. In such cases, a deeper exploration of the subconscious is indicated, an investigation of the abnormality and the circumstances which first accompanied it. Discovering these, we may more easily control a transferred fear. If the fear is conscious, we may take the following steps to conquer it. Number 1, before all else, act. Fear already tends to inhibit our activities, so we must not assist it by remaining inactive, but on the contrary, conquer it by acting. A North Pole explorer owes his rescue to such a procedure. Lost on the endless ice, he could not find his camp. Instead of worrying about it, he began to heap up piles of snow and ice at regular intervals. These helped him to make calculations through which he eventually rediscovered his camp. Number 2, make them concrete. We must illuminate those dark caverns. Answer these questions in writing and in detail. Just what am I afraid of, and why? When fear or anxiety is made concrete and viewed objectively, it is destroyed. Number 3, reason about them. What probabilities are there that this, the thing I fear, will really happen? And even if it does happen, will it really be as disastrous as I fear? Number 4, face up to them. Even supposing that this happens, what then? So what? Are there not others who have gone through similar crises? Haven't they gone on living and become happy? Even if I have to die, so what? Then can't I begin to be happier in eternity? When we imagine the worst possible natural evil that could happen to us and sincerely accept it, and so find a human or divine solution for it, we shall be victorious over exaggerated fear. Number 5, avoid the exciting factors, or rather the alarming ideas which these small stimuli arouse in us. Distract your attention from them by means of concentrating it upon conscious sensations or by deliberately following out a favorite train of thought, or, even better, number 6, deliberately affirm contrary judgments. For example, say to yourself, there is no special danger. The probability that this will happen is very small. Even if it does happen, the disadvantage would be insignificant, or at least there would come with it several advantages which would far counterbalance it. Number 7, deliberately foster contrary feelings, for example, of courage or security. This is done by the same means by which fear betrayed us, that is to say, by intense acts of courage, by vivid remembrances of peaceful moments or places, by actually saying something with a tone of courage or security in the voice. Number 8, associate this reliving of past peaceful moments with the circumstances which had been producing anxiety in you. Imagine that you are in control of the situation and that you are speaking in a masterful tone of voice. In a Brazilian seminary, I met a stammerer who was afraid that he would be unable to go on to the priesthood because of this defect. Face to face with the rector of the seminary, he could not speak 2 consecutive words. The same thing would happen when with certain of his companions and in certain classes. On the contrary, he spoke well whenever he had learned something by memory. Hence it was the feeling of anxiety which was inhibiting his vocal muscles. He was afraid that the rector would declare him unsuitable for the priesthood. But I helped him to remove this fear by showing him that he could cure himself if he would implant the contrary feelings in his subconscious by the means indicated above. And so I had him link these feelings to the experience which had terrified him most. I had him imagine and then actually say, I am going to see Father Rector. I greet him and all is serene. I am completely at peace and am master of this situation. At first he spoke the last phrase with the same descriptive tone as the first, but I had him repeat it after me with a tone of security. On doing it with all the courage and force of which he was capable, I felt that he was transformed. 3 days later, the rector came to thank me for the good done to his seminarians, and he particularly mentioned that the stammerer had been cured. Number 9, in cases of muscular constriction. By this I mean a latent state of insecurity or anxiety due to strong and prolonged tension in the intercostal muscles. This prevents the quiet, easy expansion of the chest, which is normal when we are secure or in good spirits. Instead, we would then tend to assume a posture characteristic of timidity or depression. But since there appear to be no mental or emotional causes of fear, we should try to loosen these muscles by adequate gymnastic exercises, a more correct posture, or massage. And finally, number 10, assume the opposite facial expression, not the wide open staring eyes which are a sign of fear, but rather a look that is secure and mild. Keep the voice deep and firm. Let it rely on the outgoing air current and not on forcing the throat muscles. Maintain a respiration that is deeper or slower. To do this, instead of concentrating on expanding the lungs, try to expand the nasal passages and keep them well opened. So here in conclusion, I'd just like to go over the 10 points. Number 1 is before all else, act. Number 2, make them concrete. We must illuminate those dark caverns. Number 3, reason about them. What probabilities are there that this thing I fear will really happen? Number 4, face up to them. Number 5, avoid the exciting factors, or rather the alarming ideas, which these stimuli arouse in us. Number 6, deliberately affirm contrary judgments. Number 7, deliberately foster contrary feelings of courage or security. Number 8, associate this reliving of past peaceful moments with the circumstances which had been producing anxiety in you. Number 9, in cases of muscular constriction. So by this I mean a latent state of insecurity or anxiety due to strong and prolonged tension in the intercostal muscles. And number 10, assume the opposite facial expressions. Finer Femininity quote for the day. Your thoughts are the limit of your activities. No one takes a single step further than his convictions. If you imagine to yourself that you cannot do this or that, you will never do it. Possunt quia posse videnter, the old Romans used to say. They can because they think they can. And that was by the author of the book, Father Narciso Irala, S.J. Thank you for tuning in today. Come and visit me at my Finer Femininity website. I have a Facebook page too, where I share with you inspirations of all kinds, and also an Instagram page. I also have lots of beautiful handcrafted items in my Meadows of Grace shop. Look for those links in the description below. May God bless you and Our Lady cover you with her mantle. Saint Anne, pray for us.